Thanks for tuning in, guys. You're listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg Driver. I'm joined by Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. Let's go! Hey everybody, Happy New Year! And welcome to Ace Comicals episode number 53. The first one of 2019. So we've had a bit of a break over Christmas, and during that time we've all consumed a lot of media, a lot of food, a lot of drink, and now we're back, and joined today by my usual co-hosts Leon.
Hello.
And Rahul.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year all. So, I guess the biggest things for us over the Christmas period, Smash Bros.
Hell yeah. Loads of Smash Bros.
Bandersnatch, which is the new Black Mirror thing.
Yeah, I dived into that.
Yeah, and Bird Box.
We all had to dive into that.
Yeah, we had to because,
we had no choice.
Yeah. I say it was one of the biggest things. It was probably the biggest disappointment, but I'll come on to that in a minute. What I wanted to do as well, actually, was just to open this show by saying it's 2019, and as we go through the year, it would be really nice to have you guys send us some questions. And by questions, we mean send us your silly scenarios, give us suggestions for things to talk about. I mean, we want to give you content that you want to listen to, right? So you have some control over that. So just get in touch with us and let us know what you want to hear. Give us like silly scenarios to discuss and things like that, and we will happily do that for you. So I guess we'll just open up by talking about the fact that we all played an awful lot of Smash Bros. And I managed to get the true ending on the World of Light mode, which is kind of like some weird RPG mode that they shoved into the new Smash Bros. Game. I'm quite proud of the fact that I managed to do that, because a lot of everyone else has been like, no, this is too much. It's too repetitive. But no, I carried on, busted my skull against that brick wall. And I did it. I got to the end. I got the true ending. Well, I'm proud of it, and at the same time, I'm not proud of it. But,
No, it sounded like a Herculean effort as you were checking in with us and telling us that, I think I'm at the end. Nope, I'm not at the end.
That was the
2
first
weeks
time.
later.
Yeah, I'm at the end. It's not finished. It's finished. No, yeah, the first time I thought I'd finished it. I beat what I had perceived to be the last boss, which is like the big kind of like ball of light surrounded by weird colourful feathers on the map, and I beat that thing, and then I had to beat more things, because it by beating that I just opened a hole into another whole other dimension or whatever, and then I got sent to some other dimension, and then I had to do certain things to get the true ending. And there is a point I was going to mention to you guys, which I thought was really cool, because you actually get to play as Master Hand.
Okay.
Yeah. For like part, like right at the end, like right before the final last boss, you get to play as Master Hand, which was kind of fun.
Spoilers.
Yeah, but I mean that's some. Yeah.
Was it worth it? Like, what did you get out of all of this, Greg?
You just unlock like loads of like different stage songs.
No, I mean on a personal level, what did you get out of
it? I got the satisfaction. Of knowing.
Did you though? Because like you keep complaining about how much time you spent on it. Did you actually enjoy it? Was the whole process?
Yes, yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, the only thing that I got really annoyed about was the fact that I thought I'd finished it when I hadn't.
Mm.
And that annoyed me because of the amount of time and effort that I'd spent on it. And by that point, I was just like, okay, it's just trudge through the rest of it kind of thing. But it kind of satisfies me to know that I've got like an almost 100% thing on that part of the game. I don't know why. I've just that bit satisfies me. And I did enjoy some of the mechanics in it and everything else, but I didn't like. I just don't know whether this is like something just like for me, but I didn't feel like I'd be able to get on with the rest of the game or enjoy the rest of the game fully until I'd done this. I don't know why.
That's fair enough.
It's like if I don't do it, it's just going to be hanging over me for the rest of forever, so I just wanted to do it. But then, obviously, you know, the real reason we bought Smash, the true spirit of Smash Bros, true spirit of Smashmas, was the fact that we all get to play together online and have fun. And that's what we did on Friday, wasn't it? Which 2 days before we're recording this podcast. But Friday evening, we had kind of like a big online kind of get-together with a few of us playing Smash Bros, which was fun.
We managed to align our schedules so that the bulk of us would be on at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good fun.
That was good fun, yeah. As Smash Bros always is.
And you and I, Greg, we got to have a couple of 1v1s over the Christmas period as well, like very shortly after. I think it was Boxing Day we were playing together.
Yeah.
And then we played about a good 13 to 15 matches before I got too pissed off and said I've had enough because you kept beating me. And then just took a break and then played some Axiom Verge instead.
Yes, Axiom Verge, which brings me on to my next point. That is the game that, is another game for the Nintendo Switch that you told me to buy that I've been playing, which I'm really enjoying. It's kind of like this H.R. Geiger meets Metroid vibe about it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, definitely.
And I am really enjoying it because I like my Metroidvania games anyway. And we were having like a discussion about like Metroidvania style games and things, and that sort of spurred me on to spend I think it cost me like £7 in the end. Yeah,
it was £7 over the Christmas sale, which it should still be at the time that this podcast goes out. I'm not 100%. Yeah.
But I went on the online Nintendo online store and purchased it and downloaded it for the Switch, and I'm not regretting it at all. It's a really good platformer. If you like things like Metroid and Castlevania, specifically Metroid more than Castlevania, I think, then it's the kind of thing that you will enjoy. And it has this really sort of like creepy hellscape vibe about it. It's it kind of reminds me of Prey, the first Prey game for the Xbox 360 in ways, in the way that when the main character gets transported to the weird alien craft or world, it feels like that, like some weird fusion of hell and space. In a way that's different from the way Doom does it. But it just has that kind of feel about it, this like extra dimensional kind of like. I mean I get the feeling that this is some sort of weird afterlife thing, and I like that. But we'll see where the game takes me as I go through the story. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's cool.
I've not got that far into. I think I'm a little bit further than you, but I've not finished it yet.
Yeah.
But I think because I'm kind of glossing over the story and whatever. Like, I like the setting, but it's kind of ancillary to the gameplay for me. Because what I really like about it is it takes the best things of the things that I really like about Metroidvanias, which is like the exploration and like the noticing little things that once you get used to how the game like is structured or how like the maps are structured, you start noticing these little bits which look just a little bit out of place. Yeah. And the map in game allows you to make little notes or like just to highlight little blocks where you spotted something that maybe when you get another weapon later down the line, you'll be able to gain access to it. And there's all these little hidden secrets, and if you're paying enough attention, you'll notice like it makes you feel really satisfied that you've picked up, like you've learned the environment so well that you spot those moments of disruption, and then you know later on you can come back to it and find all these cool little gadgets and stuff. And like this, every time you unlock a power up or a weapon, it gets added to your inventory, and you realize there's like a slot of about 60 items and weapons. And I've played for like a good 10 hours I think now, and I've only unlocked I guess a quarter of them. So I'm wondering how much more there is to go, and like how it expands on the existing tropes of Metroidvania. So like in Metroid, you do the thing where you can turn into a little ball and roll around these narrow corridors, and it has an interesting twist on that mechanic without, so having the same sort of gameplay but not quite the same as Metroid, which I don't want to reveal or anything, but it is it's really fun and it's quite satisfying. It's
really cool. I haven't played quite as long as you've played, but and I hadn't actually discovered that little map trick that you've just told me there. So what I've been doing is getting a new power-up and then running around the map going, Can I drill it? Can I drill it? Can I unscramble it? Can I drill it? And just like going over the whole map again and just like attacking all the walls, which is what I do in Metoroid. So
I think that's fair. I think it sort of compels you to do that anyway.
Yeah.
And I do like how it gates you off in very smart ways. Like it sort of traps you in certain room, which is, again, it's a trope of that genre, but it does it in ways that aren't very frustrating, apart from on a couple of occasions where I feel like I'm the one at fault for not figuring out how to get out of a room, but it's just not telegraphing that effectively what you should be doing. But those are like, those are, you know, 1 in 100 sort of instances where it's just not explaining it the right way for me personally, maybe. For the most part, it's really good at telegraphing where you need to go and how to do it, or at least guiding you sort of invisibly into the right direction. It's very cool.
It's good at that.
The one thing I'll say about the plot is, like, there seems to be a lot of environmental and background storyline going on, but I really don't like the main character. He's really bland and boring. We don't really get a sense of what he's doing and why, and he sort of just goes along with the plot. It's really weird. It's not nearly as engaging as, like, Samus or any of the Castlevania characters, I think. No. But minor. It's not really what I'm playing it for.
Exactly. It's a fun platformer. It's a good Metroidvania game, and it scratches that itch. So, I mean, on top of that, there was a couple of Netflix releases that I think we all took in as well. Most important of the two, Bandersnatch, which is the latest kind of Black Mirror offering. And it is a choose-your-own-adventure game, but a TV show. So it's kind of like a choose-your-own... and it's more like a feature. I don't know if can you call it a feature film rather than an episode of TV?
I'd say. I mean, like the other Black Mirror episodes where they range from like 1 hour to an hour and a half. It's sort of in that weird space between being a long episode or a feature length movie. Yeah. And I'd say if you play this film, quote unquote, one way, you know, in one sitting for one path, one ending, then I'd say it's a movie, because I think it's like 90 minutes for the default option ending.
I think it showed me about 4 or 5 different endings in one sitting, actually. I get the feeling, but I never quite knew where I was with it when I was playing it, because I was just sat there kind of taking it in, just making choices, and then like I would get to a point and it would rewind and make me do another choice again. And show me how a different path turned out, which is kind of cool. I really did enjoy it, and I quite like this. I mean, I like this choose your own adventure thing anyway. I quite enjoy that whole thing, the whole thing as a premise, and I like the way that they've adapted it to the film medium and given us this. I don't know what to call it.
Well, we're in the future now. It's like it's what the CDRs were attempting to do back in the 90s, but like with a different level, or like a much higher level of quality and talent production, and like just the hardware enables it, and the fact that you can, you know, you're streaming it and it's available to everyone. You don't have to go out and buy any specific hardware to let it function. It's and I'm going to steer away from saying anything at all about the plot, about anything to do with it, other than the fact that it's choose your own adventure and it's really cool, and it's a really nice way to spend a good hour and a half. I will say, as someone who's a fan of these kind of choose your own adventure narratives in a modern setting, so like with games like Her Story, which uses live action, you know, filming on a very like PC unique interface, or War Games. I don't, because that was another one by the same guy who did Her Story, and I'm forgetting his name unfortunately right now.
Sambarlo.
That's it, Sambarlo. And like even that uses live action, but it has a very I don't know, it has a unique way of interacting with the plot and with those live action snippets. This is a very like traditional choose one of two branches over and over and over again. It loops back and it's like has this logic gate sort of design to it. It's quite nice to see it harken back to these old style like choose a path things, like the old choose your own adventure game books, where, you know, you would read a paragraph and then it would tell you which decisions you want to make, turn to this page, turn to that. I like seeing it not necessarily have to try and reinvent a new way of engaging with it. It goes back to the old style.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good. I liked it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I played through it by myself on the day it came out, and then I played through it again with a friend, and it is quite a fun thing to do with like groups of people. I think in the same way that games like this, visual novels are like that, or like more recent games like
Detroit.
Yeah, I guess Detroit. I think of that horror movie one, but the title doesn't come to my head for some reason.
Contradiction?
That's another one, but the one where they're in a horror house and it's a bunch of teens and you got to save their lives.
Oh, I know.
Oh, the PS4 exclusive one.
Yes.
Oh god, Until Dawn?
Yes, Until Dawn. I knew it began with a year. It was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, like Until Dawn, stuff like that, they live a different life playing alone and playing with other people, and I think that's really cool. I mean, as like half of games Twitter will tell you, like this isn't like a new thing in terms of the idea. But what I think is novel about it is its delivery method, obviously, being on Netflix and highly publicized. Loads of people who would never dare touch any type of game, computer, or anything like that are engaging with this stuff and getting to experience what it's sort of what it's like to interact with a story that way, and it beyond being a gimmick. And what I'd say that set this like film apart from even more recent efforts like Late Shift, which is pretty much the same thing. That's a PC and PS4 game. It's pretty much the same thing where you get choices to do stuff, but that feels like you can feel the machinery on it, so clear as day. Where what I think with this, Brooker, Jones, and the whole team have done really well with this is that it gets really meta really early on, and obviously I'm not going to go into any plot details, but the way how it handles choices that you've made, and if it loops back, it's really smart, and it that part sort of blew me away, and the fact that it was doing it on the Netflix platform across multiple devices. So I think like it's not something that should be downplayed just because obviously it's nothing new in the video game space. I think that it's doing a lot of interesting things for its medium, being a TV show on a streaming platform. And like, while I don't think the story gets like super deep between the sort of like normal themes you get with these types of things, I do think that it's not as face level as a lot of people would have you think. So I think that there's a lot to enjoy there, and I definitely say everyone should check it out just to see what it's like, even if you can't be bothered and you're someone who just wants to sit back and let it make choices for you. I think it's worthwhile everyone engaging with it to some degree.
I feel like the discourse on Twitter is kind of reductive in some ways. Like, it's really frustrating hearing that what was it you said where it's been done before. It's like, it's like these old choose your own adventure books, like, it's nothing unique. I think they're missing a trick on like overlooking the design and how it interacts with the systems that it's on. Like you said, it's on a platform that pretty much everybody has access to now, either via your computer or via your smart TV or via a console or whatever. And not only like to functionally make it work on all these different sets of hardware, but like designing it so that people who wouldn't necessarily be open to these kind of things
are still engaging with it and getting something out of it. Yeah.
But not just giving them access, meaning that they'll try something they wouldn't normally try, but also making the way that you engage with it accessible. So like, in terms of the design, and then also the writing around the design, allowing people who wouldn't normally even consider that you'd have to interact with a TV show by holding the remote in your hand and then picking between two different options. It seeds that idea in really slowly and cleverly, and like, to say that it's been done before, I think is really overlooking how deft that design is. And then also the second point is like, maybe this is contentious because some people don't want this to be the future of television, and I think that's also another argument that's like, well, it doesn't have to be the be all and end all. But This may be laying the groundwork for more intricate choose your own adventure stories that could be, delivered through this platform. Like, I was talking to a friend at work about this, about how it's kind of like, to me, it feels like the Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 2, where it's laying the framework and is like, you might not think that it's a fully fleshed out game, but the fundamentals are there. Like, it's established that it can do this and it can do it well. And maybe in the second iteration, that will be like the best version of it. Like, they've got the template and now they can improve on it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that's really cool. And I think what I wanted to, the point I wanted to make basically is it's not something to be sniffed at just because it's something that has been done before, in inverted commas, because it hasn't been. Well, it has. The premise isn't new, but the way in which they're delivering it to us is, which is kind of cool. Moving on from there was the other thing on Netflix, which I just wanted to mention briefly and just say that it's memes everywhere, and that's why we had to watch it, I think, isn't it? Because of the memes, and that's Bird Box.
Yeah, it's one of those properties that you kind of have to get to quickly, even if you don't want to, just because everyone's talking about it, and half of the fun of it is discovering it on your own, I think. Yeah. And like, I'm glad that I watched Bird Box, because it was a fine film. It was a little bit better than average, in my opinion. It definitely doesn't live up to the hype that was given by all of the social media stuff, but I don't know where that really came from. I don't really understand like the mimetic function of how all these memes have given it to be less than the sum of all of its parts in some ways, because it's just a fine movie. It's a fine horror genre concept piece where I liked half of it more than I liked the other half of it. I don't want to say too much about it, but there's something about the way that it was not published, the way it was advertised and sold to me, that part of the film didn't deliver on, and I think that's the character ensemble bit, which I actually really like. I really like the stuff where there's all these people interacting who wouldn't normally interact in the real world, but it didn't give me the vibe that I was hoping for when I first went into the film. And there's another part of the film does give me the aesthetic and the vibe that I wanted, and like they meet in the middle, and overall I quite liked it, if not, even though I have some misgivings about the ending, but it was all right.
My thoughts on it are, it's okay. It's what The Happening would be if The Happening was good. Well, not good, if The Happening was a better film. And it just, the best way I can describe it is a film about the rapture by someone who hates religion.
That tracks.
Yeah. But it's it was okay, and I wasn't. I think because of the hype, like everyone was saying, everyone was making it out to be something that was really cool, and then I actually watched it and I was like, this is just a horror movie. And I got and as usual, I got annoyed about the fact that they don't explain the mechanics of the beast, because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what it was, and they just kept putting Sandra Bullock's face on the screen all the time, and I was like, no, less of that, more of that, please. But no.
Yeah, we will never see eye to eye on this, Greg.
Yeah. Tell me about it, please. Tell me about the creature. But no, you won't. I want to know why it is, where it came from, and that's part of the reason. I mean, I enjoy that part of it. I like seeing where people's imaginations take them with stuff like that, and that's why I enjoy knowing how things work with creatures, beasts, ghosts in these horror movies. I like to know more about what the people are up against, basically, because I like to know how people's imaginations work, and I like to see that represented. But that's just me, and I guess that's just Bird Box.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in, echo some similar statements to you guys. I thought this was something I was aware of before, because Eric Heiserer, who is the screenwriter of Arrival, was doing it. So I was like, it was on my list, basically. And then it launched, it's over sort of the Christmas period, and suddenly all these memes started popping up, and I was like, wow, why is everybody talking about this? And I think it's down to like the timing mostly, but checked it out in between Christmas and New Year, and it's perfectly fine. It's a fine thriller. It's a cool concept, and that's it. I think it's a perfectly good watch, and I think the best thing to come from it are all the memes. So I am happy for it. I'm happy that it's given us all these memes, because I'm always here for a good meme generator.
I'm enjoying the memes. I'm enjoying the memes.
Yeah, the memes are good. I don't understand why it's as divisive as it is. I think people just want to take like a Marmite approach to it, and I have no qualms about meeting in the middle and saying, it's okay, it's cool, it's not a bad film by any stretch.
I think I'm somewhere slightly left of center with it, like slightly off center. It's a bit. I'm close to the middle, but I'm not in the middle like you are. Somewhere off to one side with it. Slightly, very slightly off to one side, but yeah.
You wanted an extra hour of how exactly the monster operates and where it came from, and
narrated by David Attenborough.
To be fair, if it was narrated by David Attenborough, I would watch it. I'd be into it.
So, I guess now that brings us on to the main feature of the Ace Comicals show, which is the fact that we talk about comics. And I'm going to put a question to you, my co-hosts. Co-hosts, what is best in life?
Chocolate. Sugar.
Sleep.
Nah, fuck sleep.
I'll tell you what is best in life. It is to buy your comics, see them stacked before you physically, and talk about them with your friends. And this is because...
that as well.
Yeah. this is because I'm about to talk about the new Conan book that Marvel have put out. Now, this has like been the first, I think, Marvel book, first Conan Marvel book in a long time, and it's kind of like Conan's back, where it's sort of where the Conan comic began. It began with Marvel in the 70s, and now it's back with Marvel again, and they're sort of like making this big push, and they've got this one, which is Conan the Barbarian, and they're going to be launching 2 more Conan comics as well, which will be The Age of Conan and Savage Sword of Conan. So they're doing this big push, and they're bringing Conan back, which I'm all for, because I like me some sword and sorcery, and I like me a bit of fantasy. So and I like me a bit of Conan, which is really I like the stories; they're really cool. I mean, like, obviously, I don't know an awful lot about Conan comics wise. I've read some Conan adjacent stuff before. I read Wonder Woman Conan, and I know of Conan through other avenues and other media. My experience with Conan, obviously, I guess with a lot of people, starts with the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. The Arnold Schwarzenegger films, but yeah, I mean, like, I do enjoy these types of stories. I like my fantasy tales. I like my Dungeons and Dragons. I've been known to enjoy RPGs and things like that. So this is something I enjoy, a bit of sword and sorcery, and a little bit of battle metal about it as well, which is really nice. I mean, obviously, it's going to have that feeling because it's people swinging swords and blood spraying out, and war cries and stuff like that, which is just, it's great. I love that stuff. It always puts me in a fun mood, and it was nice to sit by the campfire after the 8-hour battle that is my day job and hear tales of a great warrior. So that's the feeling I got when I opened it and read it. It was really cool. So credits-wise, we have writing by Jason Aaron, who I know from Thanos Rising, which is kind of like the origin story of Thanos, told in a 5-part comic series, which that's actually really cool. It's a nice collection if you can pick it up. It's really good. Mahmoud Azra is the artist. We have a Matthew Wilson on colours, and VC's Travis Lanham, letterer, and Esad Ribic is the cover artist, who he's done a lot of covers lately, actually, of comics that I've been picking up, because he did covers for Fantastic Four. He was the main artist on the Image series Versus, which I think I've talked about on here before. And this is The Life and Death of Conan, Part 1, The Weird of the Crimson Witch. And it's a big old comic. I mean, like, negating adverts and everything else, it's a good 37 pages of content. Because you've not only got a comic here, but also in the back of this comic, you're going to have, serialised in 12 parts, a new Conan novella, which Part 1 is in the back of this. And that is called Black Starlight. Which is kind of nice. You got a bit of prose at the back as well, so it's like it's like a. I guess it's. I mean the difference between comic and magazine. I don't know, but because people call comics magazines, and but this is more of a It's got like the magazine feel because it's got all sorts of things going on in it. Yeah, and it was just really cool start to finish. It was really nice to read it. It was some good escapism. It's like a really good bit of escapism for me. And it's great because it's an accessible jumping on point for a long story character like Conan. Like for people that haven't or may not be as familiar with Conan or haven't read any Conan comics before or anything like that. It's a way in. And it's a really nice way in, a really accessible way in as well. It's the introduction to the book is a collage of old Conan panels from old comics and a collage of panels and art, and it's a quote from the Nemedian Chronicles. I'm not quite sure how to say that word, but that was which kind of like overlays it all. And this quote, this quote kind of like explains, kind of gives you like it's just like an encapsulation of what you're about to read. Basically, this is like this is what it is. This is the world that you're about to dive into, which is really nice. Now, the Nemedian Chronicles is a fictional book of history that the guy who created Conan, Robert E. Howard, came up with and uses in his work when he writes his Conan story or wrote his Conan stories. And it was just a nice fun read. The art's really good, and there's some excellent action scenes in there, which you would expect. And there's some great single pages, and everything has this kind of like heavy influence of old school fantasy art about it. You know, when you look at like old school fantasy prose novels, or like maybe even video game covers for things like Golden Axe, or I guess movie boxes for. Like, you know, when you look at old VHS cases for fantasy films like Krull, maybe, or, you know, like these painted fantasy scenes where it's like painted and the background's always black and red or really dark. And
a very like westernized fantasy sort of muscles and swords.
Yeah, it looks like there's a volcano going off in the background all the time. It's like it's got a lot of that about it. Like the way that they've the colours that they use in this book and the way they lay the panels out sometimes as well. It's like it's very much it's got a lot of that about it, and it's really nice. Like the backgrounds in the fight scenes, they always fade from like black to red, like everything's on fire and everything's a battlefield. And yeah, I just got really excited about it for the fact that Conan was back, and I quite like this kind of stuff. So yeah, this is my jumping on point for Conan, I guess. I mean, I've got like some of the old Conan comics here and there from a while back, kind of digitally. So I mean, I never got round to reading them. I just have them just stacked on my computer. But I guess that now this is my time to read them. And also knowing Jason Aaron's work from things that I've previously enjoyed, like Thanos Rising, which was really good. I can put a stamp of approval on this and say, yeah, go check it out. It's great. And also, it's there's another one by Jason Aaron that I wanted to mention that's now on my list, which is called Scalped, which kind of came off the back of me reading this and checking out, you know, Thanos, like whatever things he's done beside Thanos Rising. And Scalped is it's a story that revolves around a Native American reservation, and it's like a crime thriller kind of built around that, is how it sounds, and it just sounds really cool. Something else that I want to check out. But yeah, it's this Conan book is something else. It's really fun read. The writing is really good, and it's a really nice jumping on point, and it's just it's just something just to kick back and just escape with. I really liked it. So yeah, that is Conan the Barbarian by Marvel Comics, and that is my first one on my list. So yeah, where do we go from there? I think, Ray, you had one to introduce next, and this is one that we all read.
All right, so we're talking about Die here, which is D-I-E, is the new comic by writer Kieran Gillen, artist Stephanie Hans, and letterer Clayton Cowles. And I believe it's an Image book. That's correct, yeah. So this is a story about a group of teenagers in the 90s, early 90s, who play a game of D&D together. And it's sort of like, I don't know, gothic fantasy mixed with Jumanji, because these kids sort of get transported into this D&D world, but we don't actually get to see what happened at that point. We just see them reappear after a few years, unable to say what happened to them. And then there's two time jumps in this story where you see them initially play the game, get sucked into it, reappear 2 years later, and then 25 years pass, and we see the aftermath of it, of them as adults, and how this experience they went through is still affecting them. I think that's all I really want to say on the plot right now, because it seems like it's going to be one of those mystery puzzle box sort of stories. But yeah, what did you guys think of this? What are your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it, actually, and as I said, it was a fitting, as another fantasy story, it's a fitting follow up to Conan, actually, which I probably should have mentioned before. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, obviously I'm a big fan of Kieran Gillen. Try and read most of the things that he's done, and yeah, I think it's a strong start for me. You know, historically on the podcast, I sometimes complain with one of my issues with issue number ones, which is where it doesn't feel like. But the analogy always put together is that it's kind of like you want episode one to be like hook you in, and sometimes the first issue of a comic isn't episode one; it's like a couple scenes of episode one. So it feels like the hook is. I always feel like the hook comes at the end of issue 2 or issue 3 sometimes, and it leaves me with not much to dig in to issue 1 by itself. But I felt the complete opposite with this, where I was surprised at how well they dropped the hook at the end and how well they built throughout. And the introduction of the characters is really economical and get straight to the point, straight to the heart of all these characters with just a few lines and the way how they're expressed in the art. So, yeah, like I think what it does really well is I think that Stephanie Hans' art has this painterly, like hazy look to it, and it really fits with this fantasy idea and this idea of like a world that you're pulled into, and there's different like plot things in here that I won't go into too much detail in, but it does involve memory issues and time passing, and I think it handles all of that really well, because you get like some panels are working on like a palette of like a couple of colors, and then you'll have one striking color in the frame, whether it be someone's hair or whether it be the aforementioned dye, or the way just how like the characters are framed with each other. I think it's really effective with that, and also there's a splash page that I think is amazing, where each of the panels is really thin, and they're like at sort of different angles, but in that we not only get so much character, but we also get a lot of sort of hint of where the story's going, and I think that setup is really cool. So like that's something like I could talk more about this going into plot, but I think it's just so early that I'm looking forward to reading issue 2 and seeing how it continues. But yeah, I love the look of everyone beyond just the composition art, but I like the character designs as well. And I kind of like how the locations are painted, because this is set in the Midlands, isn't it?
Yes, Stafford.
And it does have this. I mean, you guys probably speak to this more than me, but it does have this this cool look where it has this thing where it's not metropolitan, but it's not like fully suburban either, and it just has this sort of middle plane of like existence and time passing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, if it is set in, like, for example, Leicester, it's definitely set in Leicestershire and not Leicester, because they definitely live in like big rich houses in this comic. But I get what you mean. Like, it does have that sort of slightly smaller city vibe to it.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to add to what you said was economy of writing. Like, this does that thing that I always talk about, which I really love, where it doesn't burden you with reading too much straight off the bat. Like, I feel like Kieran Gillen is really good at writing for his artists. Like, he's not writing for the purpose of getting the plot out. He's writing in a way that assists the person who's doing the art for him, I feel. And so, like, there's a lot going on here, which, I don't know, it's told equally through the panel design and through, like, the character alignments and, like, how people look and behave, as opposed to just narrating stuff to you. So, like, that splash page you mentioned, where it's like these tiny slivers cutting back and forth between the characters and who they're talking to, and like the colors happening between both, is really instructive of who these people are, but also informative of like where the story is sort of going and who the I guess like who the antagonists are and like what it says about these individual characters, and like the focus on the game as well as, I don't know, the players within it. I really like it. I'm really, really keen to see where it goes. And like that painterly, suffused sort of art style you were talking about is kind of soft, dreamy. Everything has this like soft, nostalgic filter, which at first I thought was just to do with it being a flashback, because it immediately starts off in 1991. I thought that suffused thing would just be in the past, but even when it cuts to the present day, it retains that style. And I really like it. And like you were saying, I like how it transforms between different scenes. And there's one in particular where it's sort of they've had, you know, the two characters have had this sort of difficult meeting years later, and they walk out into like a rainy outdoor scape, and just the way that all the colors smear together, and there's these like highlights of red from either an umbrella or the lighting outside, and it all like blends into one. I adore the art in this. Yeah, very, very keen to see where issue number 2 goes. Yeah,
I love the painted style of the art, and like I love how they managed to get the colours in that and everything else, and how it's just so it's not like everything kind of just like folds or blends. It's not aggressive in the way that it pops off, like everything's got an outline or anything like that. It's just all kind of like fused together in some places, and it just everything, all the colours kind of bleed together and bleed into the next,
but in like an intentional way.
In an intentional way, yeah. And it's really nice how they do that, and how they play with light as well, using these paints. Like some of the areas where they play with light using the paint is really good. And I what you were saying about the way they introduce the game, as in the way that they introduce each character and give them each their individual dice in that one splash, I think that's really, really cool. And like you were saying, it really gives you a sense of who these players are and what they're doing, and it's a good way to introduce the characters, gets you used to them. And the nods to the Midland metal scene, I quite like that.
Really? In what way? Maybe I glossed over those.
It'll be, well, it's like he said, it mentions at the beginning Midland metal scene, so I'm guessing this is probably set somewhere like Staffordshire.
Yeah, they call them the Stafford Six as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
And it's
and I think it's Matthew, the character. He's like the soul black character, and he's meant to be a big metalhead.
Yeah. And they mention it's in Staffordshire, I think, later on as well. Anyway,
okay.
Yeah, it's so you've got that kind of feeling about it, and like bands from Staffordshire, like metal wise, like are from that area of like from the West Midlands and whatever, like Napalm Death and Black Sabbath, and it's the kind of like where that genre of music was almost born. So Yeah,
Okay.
it's really cool.
So weird for Kieran Gillen to incorporate music into a comic book.
Yeah, he's so not known for that, right? To be less oblique, like we should point out, he did what was the first music? Because was it Phonogram that he wrote?
I'm not sure it was the first, but he definitely did Phonogram.
Yeah.
He did Phonogram and The Wicked and the Divine, which are very,
Yeah.
very music-centric works.
Yeah. Yes. And it's just I like this whole the way that he's written, like the RPG element in it, like the game element. And
Yeah, knowing
Yeah.
that Kieran Gillen used to write for PC Gamer, he's a big video game fan. I might be pulling this out of my butt, but I think he may have helped write a video game as well. That I can't verify that, but he knows what he's talking about when it comes to games and like game mechanics.
yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of like D&D rules are developed throughout the course of this comic. I want to see like because I have faith that there's going to be like a logical consistency to it, and
Yeah.
like and a knowing application of how game systems work, and then bringing it into this fantasy sort of realistic world. I'm keen to see where he goes with that.
Well, apparently they're playtesting, or have been playtesting, a version of this that you can actually play, like an actual RPG tabletop.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's what I read, but yeah, there may be a physical version of this game that they are playing in this comic in the future that we can pick up and play.
Oh, that's
Which
sweet.
would be
If they
kinda
do if they do a box version of this with Stephanie Hand's
Yeah.
artwork, I would buy that in an instant.
Yeah, it's the artwork is so good in this. It's so. I love seeing painted art in comics anyway, but this is just like, it's beautiful.
I do love that, like the design of the cover and some of the sort of incidental patterning that's going on inside
Yeah.
is based on like unfolded versions of the different types of dies you get. So I
Yeah.
think this one is I don't even know.
D12s.
Yeah, there's
Or
D12s, and then like
D10s.
and then at the back the next issue has like a pattern in the background for like a D6, which
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
So no, that'll be a D12. It'll be a D12.
Or the squares, right?
No, hexagons.
Okay, maybe we're looking at different pages, but yeah.
I'm looking
Well,
at
if you're talking about the cover, that's a D20 rolled
Yeah,
out, isn't it?
covers a D20. Yeah, but then I'm looking at the title page where it says the party.
Oh, okay. Now I'm looking at the next month. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incidental. We're talking about the same thing, really. I like that theme of flattening out the dice,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Moving on from there, this is Leon has caught up, and this is things that I think he wanted to talk about last time but wasn't able to because we had the Christmas episode and the Spider-Verse episode.
Yes, American Carnage, which you spoke about a couple of episodes ago, and this is the DC Vertigo comic written by Brian Hill and art done by Leandro Fernandez, with colouring by Dean White and lettering by Pat Brousseau. So, just bouncing off some of the things you brought up before, I think one of the strengths of this book, which is the story of a mixed-race ex-FBI agent going undercover with presumed white nationalists to dig in deep into the organization, and to because it's something that the Attorney General and the government don't really want to dig into, and it's an off-book mission, and coming from last year, off the back of the Incognito prequel, as Greg mentioned. But also off the Spike Lee movie from last year, Black Klansman, with the story about the cop in Colorado Springs in the 70s who went undercover and to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan, and it has a lot of sort of mirrors and shades of those stories. But what I think is really good about it is that it manages to be really current while not being on the nose at all. I mean, there's characters that you could immediately pin as stand-ins, or this person is an allusion to this person. But I don't think it's that simple. I think that it's using the imagery of a number of different demagogic figures together, and it isn't just like Trump, blah blah blah. And I think that's to its strength, because what it does, by not focusing on the specific in that way, it gets to be a wider story that isn't just focused on one particular wave of dangerous nationalism, but instead about the phenomena or the movement itself. So I think it's really effective in that way. And as I was saying with Die issue 1, I think this book is quite economic as well. There's a lot of dialogue, but I think it's economic with its symbolism, and it communicates a lot with a little. And often it will rely on there's like a flashback scene which is near wordless, and it just communicates so much of the character to you, and it's our introduction to a character. And then there's a great sort of flip on that when we find out more about the actual character. And yeah, I think it reminds me a lot of, like, in its look and some of its style, of Vertigo books from sort of the mid or start of the last decade, stuff like 100 Bullets, things like that. But I think with this, what I appreciate is that the writing is quite direct, and it definitely feels like a story written now, and is quite resonant with some of the stuff that's happened, not just in the US, but happened politically in the last couple of years, or more so what's risen to the front, what's got to the top and been more apparent, even though it's been festering for decades. But I think it's a good first issue. It communicates a lot, and it ends in a place that makes you want to read issue 2, just because it's quite tense, and you're like, oh god, I wonder what's going to happen next time. So issue 2 is out. I wanted to read it before the cast, but I didn't get a chance to. But I'll be reading that fairly soon, because I'm quite invested in the story, and I think if it walks this line as deftly as it's been walking it in the first issue, will be in store for something that could be quite transcendent and quite efficient in telling a story like this. One of the things that I appreciate about this book is its bravery in some of the visuals, and also in some of the words. And it's it's not concerned with worrying about being the target of any Comicsgate stuff or anything like that. It's just straight in, this is the story, these are things that are happening, and this is me digging in, and it's got complications in there as well, which is what I quite like. So this is a definite recommend for me.
And I enjoyed where it left us. The final page.
Yeah,
that's the hook for number 2. So yeah, it was a great comic, and I think I'm going back over my notes now from what I talked about last time when I talked about this comic, and you've just pretty much hit every nail I hit anyway. So I've got nothing to add to that at all, because you've hit every nail I hit and added some. So
yeah. So if I just add one thing, it's not really a story thing. one of the things that is quite ingenious about the book is how it displays the characters. You've got the demagogic, like, sort of political figure who's got a book out, and like he's not racist outwardly or whatever. He's just, the things that he says are resonant with racists, but he's not racist. And then he's got a family member who sort of runs his organization, and there's a bit where the sort of agent that I mentioned before, who's going undercover, where they're like sort of testing the waters, and or I'd say going like too full-throated, to try and like to be this like racist type character. And then the I'll say it's a daughter who runs the organization. She's like, please don't use those ugly words around me, blah blah. So it's like it sort of off kilters him. So you have all this big thing, and like she can speak like multiple languages and stuff like that, and it's all presented to be as like, this is a completely just how a lot of these different political movements and these different organizations, people who are like dog whistling all day in public, they will never say the trigger words. They'll never say the words that will become a hashtag against them or anything like that. They know the rules that well. But then as soon as you get behind closed doors, things go from 0 to damn, that's racist really fast. So I think it's really effective in displaying that, and sort of the false like the false sanitized version of what's essentially just the same hate.
The public face. They do a very good job of showing the public face of these people, and how they kind of like work their way into these positions in society by keeping that squeaky clean public face, you know.
Like it gives a more palatable, as you say, face to that ideology. Yeah, because like people who are susceptible to being pulled into this type of thing are less likely to do so if these people were to go out all guns blazing and slurring left, right, and centre, because modern society, that stuff is just, it's not cool. And even if you don't like X brand of person, it's a bit much for someone to be like, for some people, it's a bit much for people to be coming out slurring against them like that. That's just not accepted in society. But if you dog whistle a little bit, if you appeal to the stuff that's not meant to be said out loud or in mixed company, then that's how you can sort of lure people in. Because if you make it sound like it's a legit thing, it's like, I don't care what the color of their skin is or who they pray to. I just don't like how they're getting these benefits while these other people are not getting these benefits. And if you sell that message that way, that's how you get to pull the people who are in on the margins, who feel displaced by their government or society. That's how you lure them in. And I think this comic really shows that effectively.
Yeah, and then you dress it up as patriotism as well, because that always helps. Like, a lot of this stuff gets dressed up as patriotism, and I think they get that across quite well as well. Like, do you love this country? Well, then maybe you should, you know. And it kind of makes it makes sense, and the way they show that is it's perfect, I think.
I haven't had a chance to read this yet, but I'm intrigued by something Leon said, where like how. So I know that the phrase "American Carnage" is something that Trump had said in his inaugural speech, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you're saying it doesn't specifically point to him, it's more of a more broad look at like this. I think what Leon said was dangerous wave of nationalism. I'm really intrigued by that it's not honing in on one specific point. Just wanted to bring that up. I'm going to have to read this at some point.
Yeah, you should. It's great. It's a very good book. On from there, it's my next one, which is another Marvel book. And this is Wolverine, The Long Night. It's written by Benjamin Percy. Artist is Marcio Takara, and colour artist Matt Miller. We have letters by Joe Caramagna, and Rafael Albuquerque does some colour, does the cover for this one. A variant cover by Gabriel Hernandez Walter. Now, this is actually a comic that has come out of... It's a comic adaptation of a Marvel scripted podcast. So there was a scripted podcast, kind of like a radio play, of this Wolverine story, and they've now adapted it to comic form. And this is something that aired kind of last autumn, so started in September, finished in November. I never listened to the podcast. I didn't know anything about it until I found this comic, because I was like, oh, a new Wolverine story that apparently stands up on its own. I'll take that. And lo and behold, it's based on a podcast, and it's really, really good. So we've got some federal agents that are led to the fictional town of Burns in Alaska, and they're working a serial murder case. Logan is the main suspect. The agents will uncover Logan's dual identity and corruption in the small town. Logan is attempting to escape from society, and over the course of the series recovers some of his lost memories. He is, however, drawn to execute frontier justice. Located nearby is the Aurora cult, who may or may not have the power or be involved in the murders. So it's kind of like this mystery, X-Files style mystery, set in this fictional town in Alaska, where these bodies are turning up with strange, deaths, but not conventional looking. Like, a lot of people describe it as like, oh, you know, bears did it kind of thing, but then all of a sudden there's kind of signs when you look at it closely, maybe that's not a bear. And it just has this whole like X-Files Monster of the Week feel about it, especially in the way that this first issue goes, where we view a lot of it through the eyes of these two FBI agents in Burns. And I really like that, and it is a cool new Wolverine story, and it's got that classic Wolverine air about it, which I really like, with the solo Wolverine tales where Logan's out on his own trying to stay off the radar and figure out who he is or was, and living in the wilderness, drifting from town to town, etc. And it's just it's a good representation of that. So if you like your older Wolverine stories, like things like Weapon X and stuff, then this is probably something you could go to. There's some good representation of harsh landscapes in this book, and the artwork is pretty cool. It's kind of painted, and in places it looks kind of painted, and in places it's bold lines, but it's still really, really nice, and does a really good job of displaying like some of the environments and things like that they go through, because we're in Alaska, we're in this harsh landscape, and there's just some really nice kind of representation of that, which I really like. And a particular part of the book that I was drawn to was at the beginning, in the way that they introduced the story. So the bit that I really liked was we've got the FBI agents, and it's a great device, and we're looking through the eyes of the agents, and we're looking at this fisherman, and it's in 12 panel format, and they're trying to get some information from him, and they're asking him questions, and it's just 12 panels on the first page of this fisherman in conversation, and his animatedness in conversation, and him getting his hip flask out and taking a swig, and getting his coffee out and pouring himself a coffee out of his flask, and things like that. And as we go through this, it kind of introduces where we are and what we're dealing with, because he kind of talks about the town he's in as well, and you know, how many different ways there are to die in this part of the world, because I think the first chapter is actually called 1,000 Ways to Die in Alaska. So he's kind of like going through all of this, like, oh, you know, you could get killed by this, you could get killed by this, and, you know, freeze, get hoofed by a moose, fall down a mine shaft, and all this stuff. And he's just going through it over and over again. And after that, like, when we dive into his flashbacks, when he's explaining what he's seen that has drawn the FBI agents to this part of the world, we sort of like divert back to kind of almost more generic comic paneling, and then there's a bit where it intersects again with this like kind of like a line from this 12 panel page, where we're back to this fisherman like standing on the spot, looking left and right, taking swigs from his flask and things like that, which is really nice. And I really enjoyed that as a device for storytelling, and as a device for explaining where we are and what we're dealing with, and giving us a sense of this part of the world. Basically, it was really good for that. I think I'm gonna have to actually go back and listen to the podcast now because I enjoyed this comic so much, and yeah, it was just a really cool Marvel book to pick up for the new year.
Yeah, because I remember hearing it advertised on other podcasts I was listening to.
Yeah.
And like it's got a decent voice cast, I remember right. It's like I think Richard Armitage is Wolverine. So I was tempted to dive in back then.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. Yeah, Richard Armitage is Wolverine, yeah. And I'm excited to go back and listen to that now. I think I'll have to because it's really good.
I hadn't heard of this, but it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So it's like a radio play, and then it's been adapted into a comic, and it's awesome. And we've also got, like, this is one of many Marvel books that have been coming out over the past month or whatever, that's got like a really nice tribute to Stan Lee in it. So the first 2 pages of the book, when you open it, are black. You've got like 3 pages of solid black, and then a portrait of Stan Lee. And then from there, at the back of the book, we've got some more, another black page with a reprint of Stan's soapbox. And it's Stan answering a question that he says he gets posed quite frequently. What are you fellas really trying to do in your mags? What message are you pushing? Is the question as he writes it. And about how the characters and about what Marvel's kind of philosophy is and what Marvel are trying to do. And it's a really nice column, and I recommend you check that out. And it's a really nice tribute to Stan Lee. And there's a few Marvel books over the past month that have been doing things like that, and I really like it. These tributes to Stan Lee in the back and back and front of these books. And yeah, it's a really good opener. And now I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the podcast because it's great, because it's 2 of my favourite things. It's Wolverine and X-Files. So, I mean, it's not actually X-Files, but it could easily be an episode of X-Files from that first issue. I really enjoyed it. On from there, I think it's back to you, isn't it, Ray?
Sorry, I'm here. I was distracted because I was signing up to this Wolverine podcast. I was just thinking before I move on to that, because I don't think this is the only other comic book related like spoken word podcast that I know of, aside from the Lock and Key audiobook, which was spoken word and like voiced by all these different actors. Yeah. Like very briefly, if you have any off the top of your head, do you know any more like this?
No.
Yeah, it's weird because I can't seem to think of any, or like
I know they must exist, and I know there must be many, but I can't say that it's an avenue I've ever been down before. Like, yeah,
it's really interesting.
And this Wolverine book is kind of my introduction to all of that, because through this I've discovered, wait, it's an audio play. I guess can I call it because they call it a podcast, but I can call it an audio play, right? Because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah, I think that's
fine. I mean, there have been others done by Marvel. It's not the first time Marvel have done things. And I think they plan to do a kind of interconnected thing with their podcasts. I read somewhere that they want to kind of turn it into a...
like an MPU Marvel podcast universe.
Yeah, something like that. This is something that I read somewhere. I'm not sure how reliable that is, but this is something that I've kind of like took in at some point and come across while I've been doing research for this show. I've also found that they have also done some other audio formats. They've done a Fantastic Four radio series before in 1974, which you could go back and check out. And there's also Spider-Man Rock Reflections of a Superhero concept album. And obviously we know of the new Spider-Man album, which is the Spider-Man Christmas album, which came out of Enter the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I do love this sort of like cross-media stuff, especially when it's focused on the comics as opposed to the like... Yeah. You know how like you have movies and everything. I like that it's comics first and then it's the ancillary stuff. So like what was it, Prism Stalker, that has really cool like motion graphic videos and stuff. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find more of these kind of things for the next episode we record, because that's interesting. What
I like about this is it's gone the other way around for me. So rather than watching the movie or listening to the audio play and then reading the comic, I've been suckered in by the comic, and now I'm going to go to the other bit.
Okay.
So yeah, but because usually I think it works the other way around with people. Like a lot of the time, I mean, especially in my life, my introduction to comics has been via cartoons when I was a kid.
Right, yeah.
So, like, I've gotten into comics off the back of watching cartoons involving those characters, like X-Men and Batman. But this is kind of like backwards.
Yeah, I think if it gets people to, like, try something that is a little bit left of field, then it's all good.
It's good. It's good. And I'm going to have to give that a listen, definitely. I will talk about it on the cast, actually, and tell you how it is. So, yeah. Ray.
So what I was actually going to talk about next was... So I picked up a comic called Deathbed, because I found it on a list of, like, best comics of 2018. It's a DC comic. I haven't actually finished it. I've picked up the trade paperback. I'm only 1 or 2 of the 6 issues in for that volume, but I just wanted to give it a shout out. So it's called Deathbed by Joshua Williamson and Riley Rossmo. Colours by Ivan Placencia and lettering by Darren Bennett. It's a story about a ghostwriter called Valentine who takes on an autobiography job about a dying adventurer, Antonio, and she goes to like his incredibly gothic horror castle to interview him on his deathbed. And it turns out things aren't quite what they seem. And Greg, this is a very Greg book. Like, it's super, super violent, super, like, I don't know, it feels like a Castlevania story set in like a noir adventure. I really think you'd dig it. I think you'd dig the art style. I think you dig like just how grim and violent and monstrous everything is. I'm not going to... I think I can't really give a full opinion until I finish the trade, but really feels like something you'd pick up. And it just Google it, Deathbed. The colours are really vibrant. It's vibrant, but also quite like dark and gothic at the same time. It has this really interesting mix of styles. Check it out. Check it out. And then the actual comic that I've been reading is called Dodge City, which is a very different kettle of fish. This is a boombox comic. I read issues 1 to 4 collected as trade number 1. It's created and written by Josh Trujillo. Illustrations by Cara McGee, colours by Brittany Peer, and lettering by Aubrey Acer. So, Dodge City is a sports manga, basically, in comic book form. And it's really cool. I really love it. It feels like a colorized version of Scott Pilgrim, but all based around the sport of dodgeball. It's very cool, very, like, kiddish, but also, like, dealing with teenage upwards relationships and stuff. It's very, very much my kind of thing. So it's about this guy called Thomas, who's a new guy who's brought into this dodgeball team called the Jazz Pandas. Doesn't know any of the rules, and he's brought into this team that has no idea how to coordinate, and he basically finds himself by the end of the first issue being the captain of this team, and he's the beginnings of like a new form of synergy in this team that doesn't really know how to operate together. It's really frenetic. There's lots of really nice like background moments. There's mostly realistic action, but there's moments where like 2 balls are clashing in midair and the people sitting on the bench sort of get their hair blown back, but in a quite frank way without any motion lines or effects or anything. It feels very Scott Pilgrim-y that way, where it's all like hyperized in the moment, but then sort of incidental in the background. I love all the characters. There's like a deaf character called Huck, and the way that his point of view is portrayed, like with him center frame and with all these other characters arguing around him, but like framed by just their mouths, with like a gauze filter over them, like really selling his isolation. And then the way that like Thomas pays attention to his isolation and communicates to him directly through sign language that he's been studying, because he's just that sort of adorable captain, sort of unconfident leader type. And then, you know, it also serves to ramp up the drama because he gives his plan through his cell phone screen, which we don't get to see until it's acted out like during the game. And then I don't know, you can tell I sound really excited about it because I don't really know where I'm going, but like just the energy that you get from it, and like how much these people sort of strive to get along and then coordinate with each other to like win these dodgeball games. I just love it. Like, I haven't read a sports manga in so long. The last one I tried was Slam Dunk because I've recently been like watching basketball, but that didn't really hook me. But there's something about just how stupid dodgeball is as a sport, which makes this feel so much more fun. And the fact that it's taking all these like very Japanese tropes, Japanese-esque sort of tropes, and transporting them into sort of like a Western setting, where it feels a bit more like normalized to me. Like it really works really well. And plus, it's all colorized and it has this progressive Western, idealism to it. I really dig it. I really dig the artwork. It's got like really dynamic framing with really big, nice, chunky guttering with dodgeballs flying through all the panels. And then occasionally we get a collage of like scattered action, not really knowing what's happening in any linear order, but sort of deftly describing the chaos of the game. That's really like sold really well. And then if this is your kind of thing, also harkening back to like its manga roots in some ways, it goes like super Bishonen as well too, which, if that's your thing, then that really has it. But Bishonen being like boy on boy, like romance, if you don't know what that means.
It does.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say it does sound like a love letter to sports anime and sports manga. Like, yeah,
it totally is. Yeah, and like the other little things with it being quite progressive in that it's Toma is a Spanish character, so there's lots of little bits where he's talking to a Spanish girl on the opposing team, and like there's whole like pages that are in untranslated Spanish, which I tend to quite like, because I think I'd find it frustrating if it was in a movie, but the intentions behind the words weren't broadcast if you didn't have subtitles. But in this, because it's a book and I can set it aside and maybe like pick through the words on my own and give it an attempt to try and figure out what they're saying with just my limited understanding of Spanish or other, like romantic languages. And then I can go to Google Translate and like pick it apart and then get a new understanding of what these two characters are communicating to each other. I kind of dig that when there's untranslated with intention sort of moments. And I think there was another comic we talked about. Was it Border
Town?
Border Town.
Yeah. Not Border Town. Sorry, not Border Town. It was the Brian K. Vaughan one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had like I feel like it's intentional. It knows what it's doing in that sort of way, which I really liked. I also like that. Yeah, I also like that she tries to call him Thomas at first, even though they've just been speaking to each other in Spanish, and he's like, actually, it's Thomas. Like, just little moments like that where it's knowing about what it is to like live that life and be in those shoes, I thought is quite sweet. Then for me, just the colors, I love that the colors are really vibrant, kind of cartoonish, kind of kiddish, but like hyper vibrant and energized. And yeah, it's just very much my thing. It's very like calming in that there's not a lot of it's not too wordy. A lot of it's very actiony, again harkening back to that manga style. I really like it. If you want something easy and not necessarily light in terms of its content, but light in terms of how to absorb it, because you don't have to, for me anyway, it takes a bit of mental energy to like sift through heavy wording while also reading through like the comic-y panel structure. If you want something that's easy to absorb, I'd recommend this. That's Dodge City. Yeah,
sounds cool. That brings us to the end of the list. So this is my kind of honourable mentions, like a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. Just wanted to talk about a couple of comics. First one on there is what's currently happening with Detective Comics, because the latest arc is a doozy and someone has recreated the murder of the Waynes down to every last detail, and someone appears to be going after everyone involved with Bruce Wayne after that murder and doing it in specific ways that relate to the night of the murder, and this whole mystery tied around the murder of his parents as they ramp up to like the 1000th issue of Detective Comics. And as a Batman fan, I'm absolutely loving this, and I'm very excited for issue 1000, because this started in 994, so like 6 issues, the like 6-month ramp up to issue 1000, so 6 issues away. So we're on number 995 now. So in 5 months' time, we get issue 1000 of Detective Comics, which is going to be really nice. I'm really excited.
1000 issues is bonkers to me.
Yeah, there was 1000 issues of Action Comics last year.
Damn.
Yeah. So Detective Comics being the DC kind of like figurehead book kind of thing, where Batman was born in Detective Comics, in the pages of Detective Comics. So it's a big one, and I'm excited, and I'm going to be following that. The other one I wanted to bring up is the 650th issue of Fantastic Four, which was in the new Fantastic Four numbering. It's issue 5, and that is the marriage of Alicia Masters and Ben Grimm. And I'm glad I got an invite. It's the book's great. It's several connected stories around the wedding that all kind of fold into one, and each one's by a different creative team. And my favourite, which I just want to mention briefly, was by Mike and Laura Allred, and it's called Change Partners. And it's Ben learning to dance for his wedding, and Sue's the teacher. We get this whole kind of like the past, kind of like the build up to what's happening now, like the past between Ben and Sue, and how everything happened when they were exposed to the cosmic rays, and how Sue feels responsible for what happened because of what she said to Ben, and things like that. And she teaches. As she teaches him to dance, they remember their origins and everything else, and they remember how Alicia and Ben met, and how Sue kind of like sort of gave them a gentle push in that direction, and kind of orchestrated the whole thing and got Alicia and Ben together. And it's just really touching and really sweet and really nice, and I don't want to spoil it, but it is awesome, and it kind of brought a tear to my eye. And the whole comic together, the whole thing all together, it's a really touching comic. And it was preceded by the wedding special, which was really cool, actually. There was the Fantastic Four wedding special, which came out, I think, around Christmas, just before Christmas. And that was like a collection of stories, again, by different artists and different creative teams, which was really nice. But this was something else when I read this bit here, this Mike and Laura Allred bit is special. And the whole book ends, and there's a really, really nice message at the end, and it says, for Stan and Joan, and for Jack and Roz, Excelsior, for Stan and Joan, for Jack and Roz. And that killed me when I saw that. That was the end of me. I had to put the book down so I didn't ruin it with my tears.
Oh, bless.
But yeah, it was really cool. I really liked it. And yeah, the Stan Lee tributes in this one as well, and it's just such a nice piece of comics history, I guess. And it's a such a nice thing. Like it was a happy issue. It's about a wedding. It's great. So yeah, that was Fantastic Four 650, or Fantastic Four number 5 if we're going on the new numbering. And I just wanted to mention that because of that one tribute at the end that slayed me. Excelsior, for Stan and Joan, for Jack and Roz. That's it. That killed it for me. But yeah, it was great. So, pull this time? Think it is. I'll open. So these are things that are going to come out on the 9th of January, which will be the date that this podcast is available for your ears. And the first thing that I wanted to mention is something called Gunning for Hits, which is a new comic published on Image. And this is set in the shady New York City music scene of the mid-80s. This is me reading the blurb. Gunning for Hits stars Martin Mills, a record company talent scout with an inscrutable past. Follow Martin as he attempts to sign a rock band that will conquer the world in this music business crime thriller. Written by music producer Jeff Rugby, David Bowie and Big Star, with art by Moritat, The Spirit, Harley Quinn and Hellblazer. Plus, each issue will include a background feature and a Spotify playlist. So I was kind of interested to get some more of that and see what that's about. And the cover that I can see is black with a guy on the front holding a microphone. Looks like he's on stage. And he's just in pink, in bright magenta. And there is Gunning for Hits music thriller, the title for this comic in the corner, and it's the old compact disc font. You know when it says compact disc and it's kind of like that. How do I describe it? The typography that they use for the compact, the compact disc logo. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's that. So I'm excited to check this out and see what this is about. Other ones on there, I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder in Hell #1. So this is a big one for me.
I saw this and I thought of you.
Yeah. So Shredder is going to hell. Abandon all hope. The Shredder returns in this brand new miniseries. Orokusaki's death is just the beginning, and his journey through the depths of the underworld proves to be anything but a divine comedy. How much of Shredder's soul will remain after he has faced the horrors of hell? So there we go. And it's fan favourite artist Matheus Santolouco returning to the world of TMNT as both writer and artist. So I am very interested in this because I love the Turtles comics, and I love the ones that Santolouco's done, and specifically Shredder is a great character in the current Turtles verse, the IDW stuff. This will be what has happened to Shredder since his death in the main story. So Splinter cut his head off one time, and now we're going to get to see where his soul went. I'm quite interested in that. We've also got Outer Darkness #3, which we've talked about Outer Darkness on this cast previously. It's brilliant. Please read it. It's great. Ray, where are we with you for the 9th?
So we've got Die issue #2 coming out. So the second part to the comic we talked about at the top. Captain Marvel #1, which is a new run by Kelly Thompson and artist Carmen Carnero, colorist Tamara Bonvillain. I don't really know much about this. I just want to see more Captain Marvel, and I think Kelly Thompson has written for Ms. Marvel in the past, if I'm not mistaken. At least one or two of the issues. That's where I recognise her name from. And then moving on from that, we've got By Night #7, which I haven't been catching up with. This is one I spoke about previously on the cast by writer John Allison, who I adore from Giant Days. He writes Giant Days. So I need to catch up on this, and #7 will be another like a good jumping on point for me to catch up. And then the trade paperback for Lucy Dreaming will be out, which is another issue that I spoke of in the past. I think I talked about issues #1 and 2. Again, I only read those 2, but I want to catch up. So trade paperback, that's a good opportunity for me.
Yeah, and that brings us into the 16th of January, where I have on my list Fantastic Four #6, which will follow directly on from the wedding I just talked about, the beautiful wedding that I got an invite to, and I'm really glad. We've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #90, Conan the Barbarian #2, which will be the second comic following on from the Conan comic that I spouted about earlier this episode. And we've also got something called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IDW 2020, which IDW are doing because it has been 20 years. So they're doing this series of stories to celebrate 20 years of IDW. This one is Meet the Turtles of Tomorrow. In this adventure set 20 years into the future, the Utrom Civil War rages across Earth. When news of a backup technodrome threatens hundreds of millions of innocent lives, it's up to the Turtles to do what they do best and save the world. I think I might have had this on a pull list on a previous episode, but it's happening this week, next week even, so I'm excited about that. And there's also Ghostbusters IDW 2020 as well, which is again set 20 years into the future. It's a new generation of Ghostbusters, and they're sent on all the jobs that Ray, Winston, Peter and Egon just don't feel like taking on themselves. So we've also got an appearance of the Ghostbusters from the Sanctum of Slime stuff. Yeah, we've got some Ghostbusters crossing over from many other dimensions from the recent crossover event that they did, which I've been reading. So yeah, it's looking pretty cool, and I'm liking these IDW celebrations. I'm into this. So yeah, definitely. Ray, where are we with you for the 16th?
For the 16th, I've got down Isola #6, which is one that I picked up on your behalf.
Yes.
And that should be the start of the next trade, because I think the trade already came out for issues #1 to 5.
Yes.
There is a note against this saying that it's now bi-monthly, which I thought meant twice a month, but it's actually every 2 months.
Yes.
So so issue #6 is out on January the 16th, and then #7 will be out in March the 13th, which is disappointing, but if that's what they need, then so be it.
Well, I'm not surprised because of the production value of this comic, like the amount of work that goes into it and everything else. I mean, it looks like it doesn't look like it's an easy comic to make.
It looks like an expensive ass comic,
and it's an expensive ass comic to make. Yeah, and it's such quality and everything else. I don't mind waiting 2 months between issues.
Oh yeah, I'm not. It's not a problem. I just it was my own fault that I was like, oh my god, 2 a month, and then it's like, no, 1 every 2 months. Anyway, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And then I've got Life is Strange number 3, because I think that's going to be 3 of 4 total, I believe. But, I'm invested in that story. I want to see where it goes. I also noticed in the comic book shop on Wednesday that they had to do a second print of issue number 1. And it basically undoes the thing that I love about the cover for the first print, where you've got Max and Chloe staring out into a sunset, and if you flip the cover upside down, it's Max on her own staring into a tornado. And for the reprint, they've drawn Chloe back into it, so it's like she's in the reflected puddle / tornado. And it's a bit. It takes away the thing that I really admired about the original cover, but so be it. That's what you get for missing out on buying it the first time around.
Yeah. And
anyway, number 3.
Leon, anything on your list?
No, for me it's a lot of catch up and a couple of issue 2. So I think I'm going to jump on that Lucy Dreamin' trade that Rahul mentioned on the 9th, because this is one that I wanted to jump on at the time, didn't get around to it, so I thought I'd wait for the trade, and lo and behold, here is the trade.
You don't want to see Shredder's journey through hell?
Might be on your own there, Chris.
I'd rather hear you recount the tale of Shredder's journey through hell,
which I definitely will be. Yeah,
Leon, always with the diplomacy.
Yeah.
Oh, one shout out I want to make. There's been 2 issues of the new Firefly comic that have come out, written by Greg Pak. Haven't had a chance to read those, but I'm going to try and catch up on them for the next one.
Firefly.
Since we're talking about stuff that only one of us out of the 3 of us will be willing to read.
Just briefly, this Firefly comic, is it a continuation of Firefly?
I believe it's... Let me have a look at the cover, hang on. No, I think it's a prequel or a sidequel or something, because spoilers for like an ancient film, but Wash is on the cover, so, it must be some sort of prequel.
Yeah. So people still aren't getting what they want.
I know. They did some sequels.
Yeah.
Like with the book chapter and so. I haven't read all of them to date, but like there's some stuff that continues on from where it left off.
Yeah. Firefly. So that brings us to a close. That has been Ace Comicals episode number 53. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Twitter at Ace Comicals. You can find me on Twitter at Batto. That's BATTOU. You can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is kind of the hub for everything. So if you go to the website, you'll be able to find links to all of our social media and everything else. You can find us under Ace Comicals on Instagram. And you can find us to listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Castro. We're available pretty much everywhere. You can field questions to, like I mentioned earlier on at the beginning of the episode, you can field your silly scenarios, your silly questions, your anything fun like that, anything you want us to read, any content that you want us to bring up on the show, you can tell us about it at acecomicals@gmail.com, or you can get involved on Twitter and send us a DM that way, or even at us on Twitter and say, can you take a look at this for us and review this for us, kind of thing, and we will happily look into that for you. You can also get in touch with me on Twitter under @Bato and do the same things. Ray, where can we find you?
On Twitter at Monkeh, MOONKEH.
And Leon, where can we find you?
You can also find me on Twitter at Leon Everett.
That has been Ace Comicals number 53. So Ace Comicals, over and out.